And the next presentation will be given by Estonian colleagues, mainly from Pallas University of Applied Sciences. Kurmo Konsa, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor at the Department of Conservation and Restoration at Pallas University. And the report is prepared also by his colleagues Heli, Tuksam and Ingemar Maasikmäe from the same university, and even by two last year students, Siiri, Johanson and Triinu, Kohanenkov, from the same university. So please, Kurmo, the topic, he will tell us about the topic under title Artificial Cultures as Systems of Cultural Heritage, Recontextualizing Heritage. Please.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Welcome everybody here. You know, Conservators are wonderful people. Wow. Thank you. Today I want to talk to you about the way of thinking about cultural heritage that helps us not only preserve it, but in some sense to reactivate it. The concept I will be using here is called artificial cultures. It's maybe a little bit over-scientific for you, but don't worry, it's not horrible, and I'm speaking in human language. And I will show how this approach helps us bring new life and new value to heritage objects that might otherwise remain invisible or in some sense passive. Basically, what we want to show is this. Artificial cultures are a practical way to recontextualize heritage. Instead of just preserving objects, we activate them through story, participation, and digital documentation. So they start functioning as living cultural nodes, not just only a protected artifacts. In active mode, these balls are moving through this system. Okay. And here, where we are going. I will start with what artificial cultures are. Then I move to explaining such a process of creating of artificial cultures. Once this framework is in place, I will move to the two case studies. The first is the mural Põdrake, or moose in English, and the second is 19th century straw marquetry casket. And the idea of this case studies is to show how different kinds of heritage objects can be reactivated and reinterpreted through this artificial culture approach. And in the final part, I will discuss the broader implications for heritage practice, especially what this kind of thinking might offer for conservation, interpretation, and public engagement. Well, as we heard previously, today we no longer see the heritage as some kind of storage room with full of old objects. Instead, heritage behaves like more a living system, full of changing meanings, relationships, and practices. And artificial cultures build directly on this idea. A simple way, here you see the scientific description, but such a simple way to think about artificial cultures is that they are artificial. Natural cultures are natural, they grow over the time, but artificial cultures are created intentionally and in quite a shorter time span. Before I introduce artificial cultures as method, I need to define what I mean by culture in some structural sense. In brief, what inside the culture. On this slide I am using Edgar Schein. He studies mainly organizational cultures, and here you see the model of structure of culture, and sometimes this model is called lily pond model. And it is helpful metaphor because it shows that what we see on the surface in culture, in anthropological sense, it is only a small part of what actually organizes the full cultural life. At the surface, above the waterline, you see the artifacts, very different visible practices, behaviors, languages, buildings, routines, different objects, images, events, and so on and so on. The things we can document and describe easily. This is the part of culture, what you see when you, for example, goes to the foreign country. You see it's different, and the first thing what you see is these artifacts. Just below the surface, above the waterline, just below the surface, under the waterline, we see the values and norms, at what considered good practice, what counts as quality, well, what is protecting, is forth protecting, what is acceptable or unacceptable when we talk about conservation culture. And at the deepest level, down in the mud, are there some kind of basic assumptions or philosophical principles, what heritage is, what authenticity means, who has authority about heritage, and what is the proper role of the conservation, and so on. Thus, this is the very basic system of culture. In this slide, I summarize a creation process of artificial culture. And every artificial culture begins with a proceeding point or initiation point, some idea what kind of culture we want to make. It can be a problem that needs a solution, an unusual situation, a threatened object, or some kind of new educational or community need. This initiation stage is essentially a shared future vision, what we want to achieve and why this matters. Second phase is the building of the structure. And here we explicitly try to outline what the culture consists of. And here's the part of the artifacts, values, norms, and basic assumptions. And third, this artificial culture starts to exist through the communication and participation. Different practices emerge, some kind of meaning stabilize, and people begin to recognize what this artificial culture is in practice. So, how this theoretical construct helps us work with heritage. The key contribution here is that they let us move heritage from something, static into something active. Instead of treating objects as isolated things that we conserve and preserve, we treat them as some kind of cultural nodes, places where the meaning is created through interaction with humans. A conserved object can be linked to community narratives, workshop-based skills, educational formats, and to digital documentation. The result is not just an artifact, but some kind of hybrid cultural entity that exists across materials, memories, and media. And that is what we mean by recontextualization. Not changing the object's past, but expanding its cultural present and future. Let's start with the first case, the mural Põdrake Moos, painted by Meelis Sära. It was painted about 40 years ago in the basement in one of the buildings of University of Tartu. It's a humorous, personal, and very much rooted in specific academic community with historians and archaeologists. And the famous Estonian archaeologist Ain Mäesalu is depicted as Saint George. It was never meant to be an official artwork, and for decades it's remained marginal, well, liked by insiders, but not recognized as heritage. Then the context changed. This renovation of this basement, where this painting was painted, created an immediate risk of destruction. And this mural was conserved through a collaborative project initiated by Kristel Kajak. Are you here? Oh, yeah. And carried out together with students and staff from Pallas, Heli, hello. The treatment itself was technically demanding and quite experimental, but what makes this case especially important is that the mural was never just paint on wall. It was also a locally meaningful object carrying memory, humor, and a strong sense of recognition for the community. So conservation here did not simply protect the past, it also created conditions for new cultural activity in present. Well, here you see the conservation and removing this mural. And the key moment was the representation when the mural was conserved and moved to another building. And this event was involving the conservators, students, and here you see even the original model. The event turned it from some kind of private inside joke into something collectively recognized and culturally shared. And the conservation process itself became part of the story. And now this painting is exhibited in new building of Institute of History and Archaeology with different information about the story of this object. The second case is small 19th century straw marquetry casket from Canopy Parish, made of very simple materials, wood, straw, cardboard, glue. Because it is so modest, it shows a form of heritage that is often overlooked. Everyday craftsmanship shaped by limited resources, patience, and material skill. The conservation work, of course, stabilized the fragile straw, repeated losses, and produced detailed documentation. But again, the broader significance of this object goes further. This casket became not only something to preserve, but something to reactivate. At Pallas, it became the starting point for new activity of teaching, applied research, and new design. And here you see the picture of the straw marketry course led by Ingemar Maasikmäe. And here is the original object, and the students are made their own designs. So the historical technique was not treated as something fixed in the past, but as a living material knowledge. On this slide, I put these two cases side by side to show one simple point. The objects are different, but the logic is the same. In both cases, there is a moment when something is at risk. With põdrake or moose, the mural could be lost altogether, and with the casket, not only the object, but also the craft knowledge around it gradually disappear, at least in Estonia. From there, the process is similar. Values, norms, and meanings are brought together around the object, and, well, then something happens. In one case, this leads to conservation and public representation. In other, to conservation, teaching, and new design work. So, artificial cultures gives us a way to see how very different heritage objects can be reactivated through the same basic process. And some methodological takeaway. This slide brings the method together. Both cases suggest that heritage matters more when it stays active, of course, not just preserved, but still able to connect people, stories, and practices over time. So the point of artificial cultures is not just how to save objects, but to design the condition in which cultural continuity can keep happening. To conclude, heritage is not just something that passively comes to us from the past. It becomes heritage in present when people decide to care for it, interpret it, and take responsibility for it. That is why the idea of artificial cultures is useful here. We think it helps us see heritage not just an object, but as a whole system of objects, actions, and stories. So in practice, the task is not only to preserve material object, but to create conditions in which heritage can remain active, shared, and alive. Thank you for your time. Well,
thank you, Kurmo. I have one question. You are representing educational establishment.
yeah.
How much of those issues yes, you were talking about, how much from all of that are included in educational process? Is there any special subject related to artificial cultures or recontextualizing heritage? What is attitude from the side of students? Do they like such a little bit philosophical, I don't know, not so technical subjects?
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's really very important, and we are trying to introduce this way of thinking in different subjects, not only in Pallas, but also I'm working at Tartu University and also from the informational students, and we made some projects about this, but there are not yet official curriculum of artificial cultures, but I want to create it, of course. Yeah, but of course, there are different ideas which we put together and under this name of the artificial cultures. But the ideas, of course, is not only mine, but they are everywhere in the conservation society, and we collected them together and made some kind of structure, system to how to apply them.
Okay, thank you. I think we still have time for some questions from the side of auditory. Any questions? Maybe coming. What about the final works of students? For example, from Pallas University, it's like more practical restoration of objects, or it's something like research or description in the direction of the subjects you were talking about?
Yeah, as we are applied science university, then most of our works are practical. And here also the practical work are done by students, of course, and the thinking work, it's mine. Because the professors don't like to work practically. They like to think, of course, with a lot of coffee.
They keep their hands clean.
Yeah, but of course we have some, if the student wants, they make a research work also. But most of the work are practical. Because our, well, as I said, our university is applied university, and that's our duty as state sets us and gives us money for that.
Okay, thank you, Kurmo. Any other questions, maybe still?
Okay, not. Thank you very much.
Don't see. Yes, thank you,
It was
Kurmo.
a pleasure.